Another week equates to another review, and this time for my favorite R&B artist, Neo's new album, Nonfiction. Now, normally I wait till 2 days after the album drop to do a review, but honestly, this has been played back so much throughout the day that I'm gonna go ahead and do the review for it today because there's no point for me to keep putting it back. For me to push it back, and it's had 6 rotations today. And that's not an exaggeration either. First things first, though, thank you guys for all the love on my video for Lupe Fiasco's album. You haven't seen that, I'll put a link to it in the description and in the video. But for now, let's talk about Neo. This is Neo's 6th studio album and his first since 2012 saw the release of his album Red, which stood for Realizing Every Dream. I know a lot of you were probably thinking of Taylor Swift when I said that, but no. Different review here, people. And the album actually has a very interesting concept. The songs are inspired by true stories either from Neo himself or stories that fans submitted to him during the album's creation, and the songs themselves are woven into a story that's told throughout how each of the songs play out, how the songs are sequenced in the album itself. For clarity, I'm reviewing the deluxe edition, not the standard, which the deluxe edition tells the story a little bit better with how the songs are sequenced. Basically, the overall concept of the album is how Neo meets this girl named Integrity, and you know, it's your standard. It's about the overall concept is love and relationship, but the main point is how Neo falls in love with this girl Integrity, and by the third act of the album is kind of falling into temptation, cheat, and have a trying to get his girl to have a threesome with the other chick, and by the end of the album they've broken up and she's found new love. But it's a very interesting concept, especially when you take into consideration that that majority, if not all, of the songs have been inspired by a true story that even Neo or a fan has had. Especially when you take into account the singles that we had prior to the album's release, Money Can't Buy and She Knows, and the promotional songs Religious and Who's Taking You Home. Which, speaking of which, Who's Taking You Home is actually one of the best songs on the album, simply for the smooth R&B vibe that it has. Yeah, the lyrics can be a little simplistic compared to what you've heard from Neo, but it works here, especially when you see how it's sequenced in the album. That's what gets with the album, is that the way that the songs are sequenced flow so smoothly and tell the story that he's trying to tell so perfectly that you will fall in love with the album, and much like I have the whole day, you will constantly keep putting it on repeat, because even for the version I have anyway, a 21 track album to flow so smoothly, so cohesively, and tell such a beautiful story that it's just mind blowing. Now, of course, in true Neo fashion, you gotta have a couple rappers on here. We all have heard Jeezy on Money Can't Buy. That's a hater to love it guest appearance. I, for one, love it. So take it how you get it. But other than that, Schoolboy Q is on an early track of the album, Run, which he actually has a very, very good verse on here. I was kind of iffy on Schoolboy Q, especially since, kind of with how his debut album was, but he actually does deliver a few solid verses on that track. And then, if for some reason you haven't heard it yet already, in the prior week of release, T.I. guest on the song One More, which, I mean, T.I.'s always been one of my more favorite rappers. And while this isn't the best verse he's ever dropped for a feature, it's definitely a solid one, especially with fitting with the concept of the song itself, of Neo asking his girl, look, can I get you like one more drink before we head out? And basically T.I.'s verse is there to lay on the charm, that we all know, that we all come to know and love from Ti and Neo, and it's a very solid collabo. And if you're a fan of the song "Time of Our Lives," a new Pitbull and Neo collab, that makes an appearance on here too. And once again, the song sequence of where it's placed right after "One More Time" and before "Who's Taking You Home" fits very perfectly, especially when you take into account the lyrical content that's in "Who's Taking You Home," talking about partying all night long. It definitely fits to come after "Time of Our Lives." Now, what I really have to talk about here is, if you were wondering where, after as much as, even though everyone probably loves the song, if you were wondering where "She Knows" is gonna fit on the album, "She Knows" comes after. It's spaced after "Religious," but on the deluxe edition, it has an interlude between the two songs where Neo's friends show up and invite him to quote unquote do some ratchet with his friends. That leads into "She Knows," and we all know the concept of "She Knows." It's about, you see this girl that is in the know about how beautiful she is, how sexy she is, and she knows how she is hypnotizing the dudes, and that interlude flows so smoothly into "She Knows," and then it falls into the song following it. She said, what is it? She said, "I'm Hood Too," with Neo's artist Candace, and basically this is where Neo in the story starts falling into, the temptation to cheat on his girl Integrity, and it's almost like the climactic point of the story that the album is attempting to tell right here. And what's great about this album is, while the album as a whole is telling a story, each and almost every song from the album can be plucked out of the album, listen to it on its own outside of the album, and you will still love it as much as you do inside the album. Each song on the album can still live on its own outside of the album. That is how you know this is a very, very well done concept album. A lot of concept albums nowadays, if you pull the songs from the album and try and listen to them outside of the album, they don't have the same amount of impact as if you had listened to them in the album that they came from. That's not the case here. And even with the bonus songs and songs that you can tell were made just for the story, like the ending track "Congratulations" and the song "Integrity," that you can tell were made for the story that the album is telling. If you pull them from the album themselves, they sound no different from any other song that you would hear, and that's what makes this album work. And even the bonus songs like "Come Over," "Ballerina," the exclusive songs like "Body on You," they can be pulled from the album, add something to it, and even the bonus songs, especially "Come Over" and "Ballerina," if you play them after really the main story has ended, they sound as though they're an extension to not just the story but the album itself, and it continues to flow smoothly. That's something I always love with albums, is when the bonus tracks don't derail the quality of the album. They actually add quality to the album, and that's what they're doing here. Like like I said, I'm a longtime Neo fan. I have all six of his albums, bought off of iTunes, hard copies on my bookshelf. I've enjoyed all of his albums, but my favorite, even though he continuously releases quality albums, my favorite has always been "Year of the Gentleman," with "Because of You" coming at a close second. This has definitely beat out "Because of You," and if it has not beaten it, it's definitely tied "Year of the Gentleman" as my favorite Neo album. And to me, like "Year of the Gentleman," it's one of Neo's best albums he's dropped since then. Even though I've loved all of his albums, this is definitely one of the best that he's dropped throughout his career. And if if you are a Neo fan and you've enjoyed his albums, all the stuff that he does, this is definitely one that you need to have in your collection. If after You're the Gentleman, like some, kind of disappointed with Neo's output, I know Libra Scale and Red kind of divide fan opinions, especially Libra Scale with the story that one had. Still, check this out. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Don't listen to the critics because once again, they don't know quality music. They wouldn't know quality music if they hit them on the head. This is definitely one you need in your collection, especially if you're a Neo fan, you're a fan of real R&B. You definitely need to have this in your collection. But that's all I've got to say on this. Now, I am still following. I do still have one more review coming later in the week. I have um Jaron Benton's EP. Someone on my Lupe video, I'm sorry I don't know your name right now, but someone said to give Jaron Benton's EP a listen. I had it on pre-order. I got it today, but honestly, Neo's album has occupied me so much that I didn't give it a full listen today. I'm gonna give it its listen tomorrow. I'll have a review up for you guys Thursday. I don't know if you should check it out, but that should be good as well. Until then, you already know the name.